Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, Dynasty. Hello again to those of you I was just talking to over on the FFT stream. It is a one-man mailbag kind of day. Excited to answer your questions. We've got some great ones here from the email, from social media. I'm also going to get to as many chat questions as I can as possible, so please enter those into the chat. I know I'll send the retweet out over on Twitter as well. And if you happen to be catching us on Twitter, just remember you can't ask questions there. You need to come into the YouTube chat room so I can answer your questions. I'm going to start today with the emails and also apologize to you guys that I've not answered as many emails as I would like to. Had some problems with some access to the email. I wasn't seeing all your emails. We're getting that cleared up. So let's run through some emails. Again, if you have questions for future mailbags, or if you want to have a shot at winning one of those listener spots in the FFT Dynasty League, send me an email at fftdynasty@paramount.com. We've got some great submissions, but I'm not making any selections on that until after the auctions close next week. Our first email is from Cole, the current champion of his league. Congratulations, Cole. I'm a contender in a 12-team, 2-quarterback league. The trade offer I got was Jonathan Taylor plus Josh Downs for Jeanty. Now, my first thought when I thought this was like, how do you have Jeanty if you won the league? And I went and looked at his roster. He has Jonathan Taylor and Josh Downs. So he's a contender. Somebody's offering him Ashton Jeanty for Jonathan Taylor and Josh Downs. And what I would say to that is, as long as you have wide receivers that you feel good about, I would absolutely smash that. It's very, very rare that you get a chance as a true contender to get younger at a position and maybe get better at that position in this year as well. Jeanty, 5 years younger than Jonathan Taylor, also projected in my projections to score more this year. It's the rare win for the contender and win for the future. Absolutely love that deal. Take Ashton Jeanty. Question number 2 comes from Timothy. He's not the current champion of his league, but he is a true contender. He says, grade the trade. I gave up Patrick Mahomes and Jonathan Taylor. Lots of Jonathan Taylors going around to acquire 102 and Dak Prescott. Also note, I have the stack now of Dak and CD. I used pick 102 to draft Travis Hunter because it looks like I can play him as a wide receiver DB and get points for both. So it's pretty difficult to assess what Hunter's value is going to be in that form with that, but he's worth 23 points on my trade chart and the Superflex trade chart. And Jonathan Taylor is 22.8. There's a much bigger difference for me between Mahomes and Dak than there is between Taylor and Hunter. So without those defensive points counting, I would say that you gave up way too much to make this trade. With the points for the defensive back, I mean, if he plays full-time both, then I think this might work out okay for you. But overall, it's a pretty big difference for me. I still have Mahomes the top 6 dynasty quarterback, and I think he might be that for the next decade. Dak, we have some questions about right now, and lots of questions about for the long-term future. Ben sends an email in. Heath, I love the show. Well, thank you, Ben. That's very nice. My favorite listen every week. Man, no wonder I read this email. In my main Dynasty League, I made a few trades during the rookie draft. I now have 3 2026 firsts, 2 2026 seconds. But after hearing recent episodes, I want to trade that 2026 draft capital away for 2027 picks, especially considering the hype for the 2027 class. What's the best way to get that done, and what time of year would be best? I actually, in the Baked Burger League right now, have 2 2026 firsts and 3 2026 seconds, and I've kind of thought the same thing. I think if you're in a league with 11 other people that are really paying attention, that's going to be hard to accomplish right now. But if you have a few people that are not, you might actually be able to upgrade a position and do this, because as a rule, people will pay more for next year's picks than they will for 2 years from now's picks. So what I would try to do is see if you can make a small upgrade at some position where you want to make the upgrade and offer them a quicker first round pick to get that done. If that doesn't work, then I'll tell you the cycle of the way these things generally work is we're going to get to the end of this year and we're going to go through the combine process. We're going to be getting ready for rookie drafts. And those 2026 picks are going to get much more exciting really fast. Those go up in value the closer we get to the rookie draft. So I do think if you can't make a profit and do it now, you'll have a better chance to do that after the season as we get closer to the 2026 rookie draft. Gene sent an email in, said, I have been in a dynasty league for several years. I've been in the playoffs every year except one. I made it to the championship game most of the time, always falling short. I think I'm a contender again this year, and I feel like my biggest need is an upgrade at wide receiver 2. Wonder who might be some good targets for a top 24 wide receiver I can trade for. So I think this question could be handled a couple of different ways. First off, if you're dominating your league in the regular season every year and falling short in the championship game, I know it stinks and it's rotten luck and you're not getting the big pot or the big trophy. But I do think you have to keep in mind it's a much bigger challenge to finish first in the regular season than it is to outscore one team back-to-back weeks. So be proud of what you're doing in the regular season and the fact that you're getting to the championship. You will get over the hump soon. Some wide receiver 2s that I think I'm higher on than consensus. Definitely T. Higgins. I think there's a chance that T. Higgins is the top 10 wide receiver this year. And he's viewed by a lot of people as more of a low-end number 2 in Dynasty, already 26 years old. Roma Dunze, I'm expecting a big leap from him. Now, if you're talking about wide receiver 2s who just might help you win a championship this year, I think the most obvious answers are Devontae Adams and Courtland Sutton, 2 guys that we like as high-end wide receiver 2s. They're also older, so they should be a little bit cheaper to acquire and trade, and they could be exactly what you need. If you're looking for a cheaper version of that, it's definitely Jerry Jeudy, and honestly, he's not even older, still just 26 years old. So if you can go get Jerry Jeudy for a relatively low cost, you might improve your wide receiver 2 or 3 situation, not really lose any assets in the process, and have a wide receiver that's good for the next 3 to 4 years. We got a live question of somebody that's on the clock right now. So I'm going to take this chat question now. We're going to take more chat questions at the end of the show, so keep sending those in. But morning, Heath. I got Jeanty and Henderson. Took Jeanty at 101, took Trevion Henderson at 106. In my rookie draft, that's a fantastic start. 2 of my most drafted rookies, just because I had a couple tank teams last year. I'm up at the 201, and Matthew Golden is the best on the board. The other option is Scadaboo. Yes, smash that. I like Matthew Golden as a top 10 pick in rookie drafts. There's nothing that's happened in training camp so far to discourage us from believing that he has a chance to become the number 1 wide receiver for a Packers pass offense that I expect to be much improved. He could be both the fastest and have the best hands in this receiving core. And it sounds like he's a lot better route runner than people ever gave him credit for coming out of college. They absolutely love Matthew Golden. Go get that done. Wanted to take 1 second here just to remind you guys, the St. Jude Draftathon is still going on. There's a number of ways that you can be involved. Obviously, I talk about the FFT Dynasty League quite a bit. 2 of those spots are still open and will be open for the next 6 days. There's also opportunities to join one of our Superflex leagues, our actual St. Jude League, the Podcast Listeners League. You can bid on a call directly with me, be it your own one-man mailbag, where you just ask as many questions as you want. We'd love to have you be a part of this. I just got my flight confirmation. I'm headed back to Memphis at the end of August for the content creator draft. Get to hang out with some really fun people there. It's always a great time to go visit St. Jude and see the incredible work they're doing. That's not just impacting kids in Memphis, but they're sharing their research worldwide. Help us make a difference with them. I'll take a first break. When we come back, I'll get to some of our questions from social media.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Let's go. We got NFL commercials. This is fantastic. We're not that far away, guys. Less than a month. I cannot wait. As you can probably hear, the voice is already starting to go a little bit. The chat questions are a little bit limited. This could be one of the shorter one-man mailbags. So if you've got a question, get it in there quick, because we may be to those before I expected. From social media, Joe Boo says, I have the 101 in a 12-team Superflex startup this weekend. Feel obligated to go in trying to win immediately. How do I do that? What are your thoughts? So first off, if you've got the 101 in a Superflex startup, you've got to decide, do you want Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, or Josh Allen? That should be one of your first three picks. I prefer Jaden Daniels. I also have him as my QB1 this year, but I think between those three, if you're thinking win now, just taking the guy that you expect to be the best this year makes a lot of sense. They're all going to be good for the next 3 to 4 years anyway. When you get to the 2-3 turn, the quarterbacks that I have in that range, Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, Drake May, CJ Stroud, and Cam Ward. I would not take Cam Ward in this situation. I'd be, again, looking at that tier of quarterbacks, see who's still available, and I'd throw Brock Purdy in there as well, because he sometimes goes later than I have him ranked. I'd probably take one of those guys, and then I'd be looking to get one of the elite wide receivers, whichever one of Puka, Brian Thomas, Nico Collins, maybe, whichever one of those guys that falls to the 2-3 turn. If they aren't there, that means it was a very wide receiver heavy start, and maybe you could get a Devon Achane at the 2-3 turn. I wouldn't necessarily look for any of the vets that are much older until you get to that 4-5 range. And then you can start thinking, okay, I'm win now. And by the time you're at 8-9, you may just be sorting the draft room by your 2025 projections. You can really lean in once you've got a younger base that's going to carry you towards the future. I will offer the warning of the Baked Burger Dynasty League that we left that draft and Adam and everybody else was mad about how good my team was. I don't think I've won a playoff game yet. So if you start off win now, be prepared to turn into a rebuilder. Andy says, what are your Dylan Sampson opinions with this Quinshon Judkins news? So we got the news yesterday. Basically, it sounds like Quinshon Judkins is very likely to have a trial resolution during this season. And I've seen this spun one of two ways. One, this means they're working on a deal and this could be over quickly. Two, this means he's not going to even be signed this year, because the Browns aren't going to sign him until it's resolved. I don't know which one of those is true. What I do know is that we loved Dylan Sampson on this podcast before the NFL draft. I was still higher on him and had him at the 2-3 turn, even after the draft when he was drafted behind Quinshon Judkins. Now he's sharing touches with Jerome Ford. I would view Sampson right now as a flex for this year, and his long-term upside will go way up if Judkins doesn't sign by the start of this year, because then it becomes possible that he's not going to be on the Browns. But for right now, I'd view Sampson as a flex for this year with long-term upside, but no long-term certainty. Looking at my Dynasty running back rankings, let's just do the old Control F for Dylan Sampson. He's my RB 37. So right behind two guys that may be in similar situations, but may not have as much opportunity this year, Trey Benson and Braylon Allen, right in that same range. The 21-year-old Sampson could have a long, bright future, but could have a more immediate impact than we thought when he was drafted. Moneyman said, I just had a startup draft last month and got a trade offer to trade my Breece Hall for his 2026 first and Taj Brooks. Thoughts? My thoughts are no way. I'm excited about Taj Brooks and the opportunity he may have as the handcuff to Chase Brown. And I know why people are a little bit scared of Breece Hall, but unless you're in a complete rebuild, I'm not trading Breece Hall for a 2026 first. Kyle says, I have a 2026 first and 3 seconds. I'm a running back away from being a top 2 favorite. He has Gibbs and a bunch of flyers. Wants to know who he should trade those picks for. So I'm just going to pull up my trade chart and looking at the running backs that are in the same range as a 2026 first. And I think you want to decide, like, are you going to prioritize youth at all? So you go with someone like James Cook, who may have 3 to 4 years left. Chuba's still a little bit younger. Or are you willing, and maybe even Josh Jacobs, but that might be a hard one to pull off for just 120. You might have to give up all the picks in that instance. Or are you willing to take a risk on a Christian McCaffrey or a Derrick Henry? That's kind of where you're at. If you go for the younger guy, you're probably not going to get as much 2025 upside. But if you go for the older guy, you might, by the time that 2026 rookie draft comes around, you may not have any value left in the player that you traded him for. But that's the kind of the decision I think you should be making, and the names you should be targeting. James, we got one more question from social media, another running back question. Any backup running backs in 2025 you'd be targeting as a buy low candidate that could find themselves in a starter role in 2026? I think this is a great thing to be trying to do, really, whether you're contending or rebuilding. We talk a lot about not wanting to roster too many running backs on a team that's in rebuilding mode. The exception to that is cheap backup running backs, because if they turn into starters, they can turn into much better draft picks than what you could get for them right now. So I'll kind of go through my list, and some of these guys are not really cheap. Zach Charbonnet is my RB31 in Dynasty. I think that's probably a little higher than where he is in the consensus rankings, but again, he's probably going to cost you at least a second round pick. Jordan Mason is a little bit older, but with Aaron Jones' age, could find himself in a starting role. And then the names that you are probably more expecting, Trey Benson and Braylon Allen are two guys that I would absolutely put in that category of could be full-time starters next year. Braylon Allen may even have a bigger role than what we're expecting right now. A little bit lower down the list. I guess, I mean, I think you have to, it's hard to put any faith in Marshawn Lloyd right now. Jalen Wright is one in Miami, but he's not going to become the starter next year. Will Shipley for the Eagles looked pretty good in his first preseason action. Saquon Barkley, we've talked all about his workload. I think Shipley is another one. But again, these are not the types of guys that you're going to find that are super cheap, because everybody's thinking the same thing. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's one more. We'll throw in that last name as well. Looks like the questions from the chat have ticked up quite a bit. Let's answer a couple of those. We'll take another break, and then I'll get to as many as I can after the break. Steve says, I'm in a slight rebuild and had an offer for Bijan. I understand why you're doing this. I still hate trading away Bijan Robinson, but he wants to know what's the appropriate number of players and picks. I think if I was just taking picks, I would have to get 3 first-round picks for Bijan Robinson. And so if you're trying to get a wide receiver and a couple of firsts, or a wide receiver and 1 first, I would take something like, I don't think you're going to get this, but JSN or Marvin Harrison and a first, or maybe Jamison Williams or Garrett Wilson and a couple of firsts. But it would have to be a very big haul for me to trade away Bijan, even if I was rebuilding. There's a good chance Bijan's still good by the time you're good again. Got a question here. A standard Dynasty league, and we need to use the words non-PPR if that's what we mean, because that's certainly not the standard anymore. That's what we used to call it, though, isn't it? I have the 5th pick, can keep 7. So this is a keeper question. We're going to be nice today. Decided to keep Bucky or Kyron. Which one would you keep, and would you make a move on the other running back and set second pick to get Hampton? Oh boy, this is a lot of information. I would keep Kyron over Bucky, but I am in the very, very small minority. And I'm sure there's already people in the chat saying that that's dumb. Should I trade Jaden Reed for a 2027 first and Kirk? I would love to get a 2027 first round pick for Jaden Reed. Absolutely. Go get that deal done. What would you sell Anthony Richardson for in Superflex? Why are you trying to make me sad? It's a one-man mailbag day. This is supposed to be a happy time. I'd probably sell him for a second, and I hate it, and I would be mad at myself for doing it. but he has such a hard time playing football without getting injured. And the fact that the way that injury happened was kind of indicative of some lack of development. So I'm discouraged, and you made me sad, but probably a round 2 pick in 2026 or 2027. Maybe ask for 2 and see if you can get that. Let's take a quick break. We'll get to a few more questions.
Get ready.
Wait a second. I thought we were going tubing.
All 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and Knuckles are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
And everyone loves it.
Every adventure,
Just try to keep up.
every face-off,
This ends now.
and every moment that will have you saying,
Where have you been? My entire life!
It's showtime.
all 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and the entire Sonic universe are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
We are back. We got a question about what's a fair trade offer for Xavier Worthy in a 12-team Superflex PPR league. I have 3 2026 firsts. This is one of those situations where it's with just those assets, it's really hard to get the deal because I think 2 firsts is too much for Worthy. 1 first is not enough for Worthy. I'd probably see if I could get him for a first and a second. That seems like fair trade value. If somebody's really wanting to head into a rebuild and doesn't believe in Xavier Worthy, and maybe you give them 2 2026 firsts and see if you can get a 2027 first back. But first and a second seems like the most fair. We've got somebody else who's off Kyron, so let's do this. I'm off Kyron this year, but hard to get a good down tier. Any suggestions, or is it better to try an up tier instead? So probably a good time to just say this. I have Kyron at RB6 in Dynasty. He's in the tier with the top 10. So my tier down is not going to be somebody else's tier down. If I was, I think even most people will have Trevion ahead of him as well. So it's not like you can even get younger at the position. If there was somebody that maybe has a lower value that you could tier down and pick up an additional asset, I think Ken Walker is the guy I would try to target, because if he gets off to a good start, his value could explode, still just 24 years old. But again, I think there's a lot of people who have Ken Walker who won't trade him straight up for Kyron Williams. So you're probably asking the wrong guy. I would just keep Kyron. And now I'm reading this, and I think you were wanting to trade Ken Walker. So why don't you go see if you can deal Ken Walker for Kyron? That's exactly what I would say. Sorry for that, Dennis. My reading is almost as bad as my voice right now. Heath, grade the trade. Traded Breece Hall in 211 for a second this year, second next year, third. Traded 4 Hall in 211. Love it. A+. Great deal. If you gave up 3 seconds and got Breece Hall, that's fantastic. Dustin says, how comfortable are you with both Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams on a contending team? Any change to your projections or rankings? I made a slight move to put Neighbors ahead of Puka, but for the most part, I think if that makes you nervous, then maybe trying to diversify. But right now, the market seems to be more concerned about Matthew Stafford than I am. I think the difference between Stafford and Garoppolo, while it's noticeable, is not as big as the difference between most starting quarterbacks and their backups. So I think they're both going to be good, even if Stafford misses time, and their perceived value may have dipped more than it has in my mind. Christian says, do you agree we should use redraft rankings to determine how strong of a contender we are? I think it's an excellent way to do that. Not the only way, because do the redraft rankings align with exactly what's going to happen? Not entirely. Do they align it exactly with what you're expecting? Maybe not, but it's a good place to kind of start and then see where you are judged by that barometer. I think the way I've heard it said was, do you have 4 top 30 players? And if you do, then you're a legit contender, regardless of what the rest of your roster looks like. I think we will see if there's one more question here that I will try to get to. Yeah, this is a good one. Like, too much depth at the quarterback position. Steve has Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix in a dynasty league. Should I trade Allen or Jaden to help strengthen my team rather than having one sit on my bench wasting away? Oh, wow. You have all 4 of those guys in a 1 QB league. Yes, 100%. I would be trading maybe 2 of those guys, definitely one of those guys, and trying to get an elite anything. And you may have to make a pairing deal. Maybe you can trade Daniels and your wide receiver 2 for a wide receiver 1. Maybe you can trade Allen and your RB2 for a true RB1. But yes, if it's a 1 QB league and you can't start Allen and Daniels every week, I do not want to commit that much in terms of assets to the quarterback position. That's going to do it for the one-man mailbag. I see we still have a few more questions coming in. Apologize I couldn't get to those today, but we'll have another one-man mailbag in the future. I will talk to you next Tuesday.